The Braves inked top international prospect Jose Perdomo on Monday, and we're finally getting a little bit of an idea who this guy is. He's a Venezuelan shortstop. He's 17 years old. He's a stud. But we had a scout, and this kind of rubs me the wrong way, I'm not going to lie, who referred to him as a young Miguel Cabrera. And I know a lot of people are going to read that. Oh, my God, we got the next Miguel Cabrera. Listen, he's 17 years old, and he's a 17-year-old that just got handed $5 million. Like, imagine being a guy from Venezuela, basically had nothing in your life, and you get handed $5 million. It is impossible to judge how a young man at 17 years old, I don't even know how I would react. I have no idea how this, I don't think I would be out there training my butt off. The difference between a young Miguel Cabrera and the Miguel Cabrera that we know today is he worked his butt off to become the Hall of Famer and one of the greatest hitters of all time. So while it's exciting and the Braves obviously believe in this kid, they wouldn't have handed him $5 million if they don't believe in him. There was a prospect not long ago, 2017, that we lost that was deemed the next Miguel Cabrera. His name was Kevin Maton. Kevin Maton went on to never make it past AA. He struggled with his weight, struggled with his work ethic, struggled with all sorts of things like that. So you never know how things are going to react. And then especially in a sport like baseball where confidence and stuff like that is so important, and getting over those periods where you're not as good. Maybe you have a struggling year in AA or something like that. Putting that behind you and then moving forward is such a big aspect. I mean, we talk about guys getting the yips all the time. It happens with hitters. It happens with pitchers. It happens with everyone. You have to be able to overcome adversity in this sport. And you never know how a guy is going to be able to do that at 17 years old before he's ever played professional baseball. Exciting prospect, but I hate the comparisons to Miguel Cabrera because you're almost setting him up to fail.
Well, comparisons across any sports are just ridiculously unrealistic. The one that just popped into my head, I don't remember who did it, but it was Victor Wembanyama, the number one pick from this past year's NBA draft, who's, the biggest star since LeBron James. And someone said that if he had the career of Hakeem Olajuwon, it would be a disappointment. That's a first ballot Hall of Famer, top 3 center all time, and that would be a disappointment. These comparisons are they're the thief of joy. That saying is a thing for a reason. And the fact that somebody's comparing this kid, 17-year-old, to Miggy, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't even need to go and list out all the accomplishments. I mean, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, 500 plus home runs, Triple Crown winner, 300 plus batting average. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about this guy's accolades. And you're talking about a 17-year-old kid. Now, listen, Perdomo, hell of a prospect. He could turn into something extremely special. And I don't want to doubt the kid, and I don't want to doubt the Braves, what they see in the kid. But to act like that, you could just throw around things like that is disingenuous to him most of all. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and it's also it's almost like a cheap comparison, right? Like, he's a Venezuelan shortstop. Miguel Cabrera was a Venezuelan shortstop. It's like, how about you name him to some obscure player that played in like the Dominican Republic? Like, I want to hear those comparisons. Like, it just seems kind of cheap when you're comparing him to his country mate. And like I said, I think Miguel Cabrera in my lifetime is up there, if not the best, one of the best pure just hitters to ever grace the game of baseball in this generation. So I just think, like you said, you're being disingenuous. There's so many guys out there, so many situations. I remember when Joe Burrow was coming out, people were like, "Oh, he's the next Tom Brady." It's like, dude, don't do that to him. Like, don't compare the guy to the GOAT. Like, yes, he's going to be a really good player. You can say all these good things. You do not have to compare him to the best player of all time, because that's impossible to live up to.
Well, comparisons are just so finite. I think it was Michael Irvin who compared Michael Penix to Mike Vick. I mean, that was just a hilariously low-hanging fruit comparison. It was like, oh, he's lefty and he's black. Yeah, he must be Mike Vick. When in reality, they share no similarities in their game whatsoever other than being lefties. I mean, it was hilarious. And like your point, everyone's the next Tom Brady. Mac Jones got those comparisons coming into New England. It was just unfair from the get-go. And this is in the similar vein where it's unfair to Perdomo.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing before we wrap up this segment, and it's aside from the Miguel Cabrera comparisons, because there were some other good quotes that I think are much more important than some guy comparing him to Miguel Cabrera, even though that will catch all the headlines, and that will catch the headline of this YouTube video. It's that the moment that they figured out that Jose Perdomo was a guy that they have to go out and hand $5 million was a showcase with, I think it's Freddie Salas, who is another fantastic, highly rated prospect for the Padres organization, where they were facing AA and AAA pitchers that were humming at 96, 97 miles per hour. And they said the adjustments that he made and his performance against those guys at 15, 16 years old, it blew them away. So there is reason to be very excited about this kid. I just hate the comparisons to Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, and one last thing, I think it was the same interview, referenced the king of Venezuela right now, past Miggy, is Ronald Acuna Jr., and he played a role in him coming to Atlanta. So I think that I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say it. Ronald Acuna Jr. is paying for himself on and off the field.
Yeah, and like he said in the interview, it's not like Ronald Acuna is calling these guys. They want to play with Ronald Acuna. He's an MVP. He sells himself. Coming up after the break, the asking price for Justin Fields. There's debating reports.